My name is Marcia Jews. Welcome to STEM City USA's coverage of the Women of Color STEM Conference. Through all 3 days, we will be bringing you incredible interviews with inspiring STEM pioneers leading the way in industry, government, academia, and around the world. And now, please welcome our next guest.
Hello, I'm Dr. Shaneka Lawson. I am a research plant physiologist working with the USDA Forest Service in West Lafayette, Indiana. Something interesting about me is I began my STEM career in human genetics and neuroscience, and I worked with a number of animal models: mice, rats, chicken, zebrafish, and microscopic worms, before transitioning to work with trees to study plant genetics and genomics.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is wonderful. How are you doing?
So far, so good.
So, Shaneka, you're from my area.
Oh, most definitely.
Yes.
Born and raised.
I love it. You know, it's really interesting. How did you get involved in research plant and psychologist?
Well, it's more of a physiology. So I'm really interested in how plants provide us with the chemicals that we need for everyday life. The drugs that we use every day are generally derived from plants. And one of my interests is climate change. So I know those two don't really sound like they go together, but when I started looking at plants and the things that they do for us, I started to look at plants and their role in the environment. And when I started to do more in-depth research, I saw that they were heavily involved in genetics, climate change. Everything that we do affects our environment around us. And I was really interested in knowing more about it. So when I had an initial interest in chemicals, chemical mutagens, it led me to plants, which create them, which led me to genetics, which led me to physiology, and then climate change. And we've just gone from there.
That's a lot.
I know, it's a lot.
It's a lot. But it's fascinating, though, that you could find, you know, what we take for granted, seeing plants growing in the park, in your backyard, your neighbor's yard, and we don't really realize the impact that they're having on not only the environment but on us as well. Can you speak to that?
I can speak to climate change. I can speak to the role of pollution, and we can talk about wildfires. I was here earlier serving as a moderator on a panel where we discussed climate change and fires. And I think everybody on the Eastern Seaboard is very well aware of how smoke affects the population. In LA, everyone talks about, oh, smog this, smog that. But when those wildfires came about, all of that smoke, perfectly healthy people were suddenly getting sick. They were having conditions that they never knew existed before. There were genetic conditions that were underlying, and the smoke exacerbated that. Here on the East Coast, the wildfires in Canada, all of that smoke went down the seaboard. Like, my parents live in Maryland, and they were having issues. The news was telling them to stay inside. So when we think about, oh, it's a wildfire, it doesn't affect me, it truly does. The smoke has no boundaries. There's no markers in the sky saying, okay, stop here. It just continues to affect us. And when you look more in depth at the trees, they're trying as quickly as possible to adapt to the environments that they live in. And there are genetic modifications that allow certain trees to survive when it's really hot, when it's really cold, but those that don't adapt quickly enough die out and some other species will take over. So we've got to really pay attention to what's happening in our forests, because that's what's going to keep us here for a much longer time.
But while so a place like Baltimore is more urban, but there are trees. We do have parks. We have trees growing in people's backyards, right? How does the common person who's a resident in an environment where smoke is traveling down the eastern coast or Midwest, how do you make certain that you can cover your family and protect your family from all of this smoke? And what is that smoke filled with?
Volatile organic matter is essentially what is the particulates in smoke. And essentially what it does is you inhale, you might not even see it, you might smell it, you might taste it, but it goes into your lungs and it irritates them. So that coughing, that hacking cough that you know some folks have every morning, every evening, it's because the lungs, the lining is just, it's like sand in there, and that's scraping against it. So your everyday person will have a couple of trees in their yard. But what they fail to realize is they might put a tree out there that's not native to the environment. So it's a
Oh.
tree that'll lose its leaves too soon. So that additional protection that you might have won't be there. You might plant a little bush that doesn't really do a whole lot. So if you've got a few nicely leaved trees like oak, anything with a higher transpiration rate, that's pulling in the carbon dioxide, releasing oxygen. The closer you are to a wonderful tree in your backyard providing shade, in my opinion, the better you are. Now, of course, there are thunderstorms and ice storms that
Right.
will also affect trees, so you have to be a little more careful. But the best you can do is mask if there's a high pollen content, high smoke content. You can make sure that your trees are healthy. A dead tree does very little to help you in your backyard, and people don't look at that.
So that's really interesting when you sit down and you really think about. We had a lot of trees in our yard when I was growing up, and when we look at the trees that are in the footprint of these fires, how do we, as citizens of that community, protect ourselves? Do we have to start wearing gas masks or some sort of mask to protect ourselves? This sounds serious to me. I'm not taking this lightly.
It is extremely serious. And as far as the gas mask, I mean, everyone can do what they want to protect themselves. There are masks that provide even more support. The CDC, I believe, was talking about an N95 mask, which is a smaller mask, but it has a filter that keeps most things out. There's something that's even more advanced called a P100, which has replaceable filters. And then, of course, there's your gas mask. I personally would not go quite that far,
That's
but
extreme.
it's a little extreme.
Just a
But
little.
to each their own. I don't judge. But there's, with the threat of wildfires, all we can do is more investigation, more research into the causes and try to prevent them. We can't stop them. Climate change is something that we cannot, I wouldn't say reverse at this moment. We can slow it down by, of course, recycling, being more conscientious to the environment,
Mhm.
not burning a lot of stuff. I mean, because everything adds up. You've heard about holes in the ozone layer.
Right.
Now, folks, let's say south of the equator, are starting to get like these nasty burns because they have very little protection. It's the same thing with the wildfires. You have to know that it's coming, pay attention to the news, know that if it gets extremely dry, maybe it would be a good idea to keep your lawn watered, to make sure that if you are having a bonfire in your backyard, it doesn't get out of control. The grilling that everyone loves to do in the summer, make sure those coals are actually out, because if the wind starts to blow, just a little spark from your grill
Ember. Yes.
will set your grass on fire, which could set your neighbor's house on fire, which could set their tree on fire. The embers could travel from there. So it's more of, you have to police yourself and make sure that you're doing everything that you can. Because the folks on my end, the scientists, we're doing whatever we can on our end. We just need the public
To do their part.
to do their part.
Shaneka, this is really fascinating to me. And I'd like to know how you identified this area to focus on.
I think this was more of a case of it found me as opposed to I went looking for it. I did 4 years of human genetics, a year of neuroscience, and then, like I said, I wanted to know more about chemicals and mutagens. That led me to plants which produce them, that led me to genetics, and I didn't have an opportunity to get a PhD in plant genetics in Baltimore because I went to Morgan State and then I went to Johns Hopkins. But Purdue University had a PhD program in tree
In
physiology.
Indiana, Purdue?
Indiana.
Lafayette.
That's where my house is.
I'm from Indiana. South Bend.
Okay, which is incidentally is actually north of the state. When I first moved there, I'm thinking South Bend would, I don't know,
Be south.
Be south.
And it's
It's
not.
not.
It's right up there by the state line.
Yeah, so I went to Purdue and I got really interested, and I deposited my dissertation September 30th and my job started October 10th.
I love it.
So there was no real break. I just went full speed ahead into working for the Forest Service, and I haven't looked back. It is so variable. I actually do career talks for underrepresented minorities, students. I'll talk to anybody about careers in the Forest Service. every single career option they've told me they want to do, I can find a place for them in the Forest
Oh,
Service.
so we're doing placement now.
Oh, most definitely. We need more people in the Forest
Yes,
Service who look
looking
like
like
me.
us. Right.
Exactly, because there aren't that many. And I say we as the
The
royal
greater.
we.
Oh.
We're trying.
Did you say the royal we?
The royal we.
I'm liking that. I'm using that, girl. Do you mind if
I don't mind
the
at all.
royal we? Yes.
We are trying very hard to find students interested in an aspect of the Forest Service, because the folks that used to be here when I first started in 2011, everyone's retiring. They've hit their 40-year mark. And I personally think it's unfair to sort of force people to stay because we don't have anyone to fill the gap. We don't want to lose the knowledge. So obviously we'll keep reaching out to them for their advice, but they've earned their time off. So we need to get some of these young students to come in and fill these positions. I mean, doctors, lawyers, elementary school teachers, veterinarians, there is a role for everyone. We mentioned the forest. There are animals in the forest. Those animals might need help. Veterinarians, ecologists, hydrologists, geologists. If you just like looking at the stars, we can find a job for you. I was on a research panel with someone who started out as an artist.
Girl, we're gonna do all of this.
Most definitely. I 100% committed.
Right.
And
Right.
I even went so far as to put together a presentation that I will give at different conferences. I was at the Manners Conference earlier this year in Atlanta, and I was talking about careers. When I say I talked to students, there was a line continuously for 8 hours, no bathroom breaks for me, no food for me. I had student after student after student after student who wanted to know more, and all of their interests were across the board. But like I said, that human genetics, neuroscience, my interest in animals, plants, that varied background is what has made me so, I don't want to say knowledgeable, not tooting my own horn. I want to say,
Just be you.
uh,
Be
thank
you. That's what we do here.
I'm so knowledgeable. It's
Right.
about so many different things so that students understand from my viewpoint how they can fit in with us. Because when I gave my first lecture at Purdue University, it was a guest lecture. I walked in and I said, I work for the Forest Service. At first, they were like, you work for the Foreign Service? So I'm like, no,
Right.
no,
Right.
not foreign.
Right. And you got all that melanin. What's wrong with
Yes, girl.
Indiana? Girl, I understand.
I said, forest, trees. They're like, oh, you didn't bring your chainsaw? My sweetheart, I work in a research lab. Now, don't get me wrong, I am chainsaw certified. And I have a hard hat.
I'm sorry. Wait. You say I am chainsaw certified.
Yes, ma'am. That means, you know, how some folks like, oh, I can take that tree down, and you don't need a permit to use a chainsaw. They go out there and the tree's falling on their house, it's falling on their car. That's because they're not chainsaw certified. They just want to cut stuff down. Well, there are rules to using the chainsaw.
Right.
There are certain directions you need to assess,
To
whether or
make
not,
sure which way it's gonna fall, not on somebody's house or on the car
or on yourself,
on
because that
yourself?
happens. Yes. So
That is amazing.
it's not a requirement,
You have
but
changed my whole view of forestry.
thank you.
No, I'm very serious.
I am
You
too.
know, one of these kids were lined up around the corner because you make it one exciting and interesting, and it's fascinating because we've never heard of all of these things before. You got to do your book. Where's your book?
Oh, there's no
Where's the
book.
You got to get your book.
Oh, okay.
You got to get your book and come back next year with the book. You have a year
To write
to
a book,
come back to write the book.
and it won't be a coloring book.
And a coloring book. Oh, you can have some little coloring pictures in there if you want to, but you go put this book together because it's real.
That is true. There's so many things you didn't know. And when I'm speaking in urban environments, like I have to give a not have to. I've been selected to give a presentation at Morgan State next month.
Right.
I'm going to talk to them, and I'm going to give them every honest to God fact I have learned, the good, the bad, the ugly, what you need to do, what
Right.
we desperately need, what we have a lot of already, where your role will fit in. And when I'm speaking to younger students, not undergrads at Morgan State or grad students, like when I'm speaking to elementary school students, they need to see someone they know. So I've
Right.
created a presentation that has Drake, Common, Justin Timberlake, All three of them are hugely interested in environmental protection. They give millions.
Really?
Common actually started the Common Ground Foundation. Not that I'm endorsing Common or anything. We are not friends. I'm not getting paid for this.
Okay.
So that he gives so much money for environmental efforts. That's not something you hear in the news.
At
That's
all.
not something you hear on VH1. They all want to know what his latest single is going to be, not what
That's
he
right.
does with all of the money that he makes. Justin Timberlake does the same thing. He has literally given, don't get me wrong, I think it's like $20 million of money from his pocket, money I'll never see in my lifetime, to create an environmentally friendly golf course. Because all the water that
Oh,
on this golf course is to cut that fresh water has to come from somewhere.
yes, it does.
Environmentally friendly. Everything is recycled. Everything there has a purpose. And these are stories that unless you are digging through the literature and all of the ads and the articles, you'll never find this.
At all.
I bring it to the forefront and I show the students it's not uncool or unpopular to be concerned about the environment. Justin Timberlake, worldwide, everybody knows his name. Common, they know his name.
And they're going to follow him.
And they're going to follow along with that. And
Right.
the more you do to protect the environment, the better it's going to be for generation after generation after generation. I tell my parents, you want your grandkids to be in a nice environment where they can go outside without the gas mask.
Well,
You want to start recycling. Because my mother's like, well, I pay for the trash fee. No, mother, no. You don't put all your recycling in the trash, so they put it in a landfill. You want to put those plastics, those bottles in a separate container so it can be recycled. I mean, even if 10% is recycled, that's millions
that's
of pounds.
an impact. That's right.
That is an impact.
That's an impact. And so when we look at impacts, you're really dancing all over the world with your research. And what would be the top 3 things that you would say to our audience? And our audience will be people who are either subscribers to the Black Engineer and Information Technology magazine or the Women of Color magazine. And so STEM magazine. And then you have this conference, and then the Black Engineer is in February. These are really wonderful places where you have a youth. You've got middle school young people who are here, high school students, college students participate. I'm glad that you're here. So looking at next year, perhaps having some real time with some of these people and get your book together. Get your book together.
I will do my best.
The Marine Corps says, tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them, and tell them again.
Well, I think you've told me what you're going to tell me, and you've told me again. So I think I need to start listening.
You heard that.
I heard you.
You heard that, though.
I heard that here.
We're on.
We're live, so I can't say I didn't hear it.
Exactly. So what's the next step? We know you already have laid the groundwork on a national level, and I know that you're looking at global. So how does that look to you?
Well, right now I am a research scientist. I am one level above me as project leader, then it's assistant director, then it's director. But in my area, it starts at like the unit level, then the region level, then like the little corner of the country. I'm trying to go to DC because that's where I wouldn't say the real impact. That's where I think that I can make the most difference. I don't mind being
as a lobbyist.
Definitely not a lobbyist. Okay. I don't have the temperament for that.
Okay.
I just want to be there where you can make decisions. For example, if the chief of the Forest Service is really interested in something, I want to make sure that most definitely I know it's going to be environmentally conscious. I want to make sure that the people below him hear what he's saying, because you got to tell him once, you tell him again, you tell him so that they hear you. I want to make sure that everything that trickles down actually gets done, because where I am right now, I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. Okay. And then when you move up one level, you're only controlling like the few people that are in your unit. You move up, you're only controlling the few people in like that area. You move up to the director, you control the few people in that corner of the country. Well, in Washington, D.C., you take care of the entire country. I wouldn't say make laws, but the things that you say, people must do.
Right.
And I can talk as much as I want at my level, but who am I talking to?
And who's going to make the decision? And you got to get to a decision maker to affect the change that you want to see.
Absolutely.
And that we as a population in this country need to see. So, and when you look at all of the issues where The environment is under attack, where, you know, the smog and all the things you talked about, the fires and the environment. What do we need to do as citizens of this country in our little community in Baltimore or Chicago or LA? What should we be doing, and how should we create an environment where we have people who are going to work together to change our atmosphere?
I think everybody has an opportunity to be just like me. Not that I am the mold that everyone must follow. You can volunteer. There is no rule that says that you can't go to a park and pick up a piece of trash. Worldwide, we have folks that wish they had a job but can't get one. We have people in this country that would like to work but can't. We have other folks in this country that should work and don't. You heard me. When you see every business you've gone into for the last 6 months saying help wanted, help
Right.
wanted, and you walk through the aisles at the grocery store and there's like stuff that's all turned around and knocked over, least you can do, fix that soup can, turn that lid back around, pick something up off the ground. You can do the same thing in your parks. You can do the same thing when you were talking to the garbage men. Don't get me wrong. I will wave to my garbage men. I will say hi. I will thank them, because that is a thankless job. They literally pick up the trash that you don't want. Make them feel appreciated, because let's just say there's not a line out the door of people who want to do that job.
That's right. That's right.
McDonald's, say thank you when you get your food from that teenager who's trying the best they can and has forgotten your fries. Don't come across the counter. I've seen the news stories. People come across the counter. Just say, I'm sorry, you forgot my fries. I was here yesterday.
Civility.
Civility. That's all we need to do. That's what each and every person can do. If you can speak, you can help. If you can move, you can pick something up. On stage yesterday, I was supporting a friend at the ceremony. A woman was trying to help people because there's no real barrier, not fall off the edge of the stage. This woman on stage turned around and snapped at her like, don't tell me what to do. Girlfriend, she is helping you. People don't seem to understand. It's not always something that's negative. If she's saying, please don't step to the edge of the stage, it's so you don't hurt yourself.
Right.
Not because she doesn't want you close to her. It's stop taking everything so personally. My skin is so thick. I have heard so many things. The people who are willing to help will hear you.
Yes.
They won't make a move immediately because there's all this public perception, but in their own time, they'll go throughout their yard and they'll pick trash up and put it in the trash can. After you have fireworks or something set off for the 4th of July, that trash that's left everywhere, including in the road.
Yep.
I can't afford fireworks.
And it's across the country.
Everywhere. Just if you're going on a walk, pick that stuff up. If you're taking your dog for a walk, if you're picking up other things, you may as well just pick up some of that stuff too.
Right.
Everybody can do their part. And I can't say enough how important that is. And I'm not just talking.
No,
I am
you're doing the work.
The work.
You're doing the work.
As a matter of fact, I'm getting a community service award here
Wonderful.
tonight
Oh, great.
for 10,000 hours of volunteer service.
Oh,
10,000.
that's
You heard
wonderful,
me.
Shaneka.
I work with everybody. I will work with a number of companies in Indianapolis. I will work with folks in Lafayette, West Lafayette. I work with my sorority. You name it, I will work with anybody, because every little bit that I do will help everybody else.
Okay. Shaneka Lawson, thank you. Thank you for
you.
coming. Thank you for bringing your energy. Thank you for bringing this information. And you all need to hopefully watch this again so you can see how you can be involved in your community. It's really necessary. And Shaneka, you have placed us in a position where we don't have an excuse anymore.
No excuses.
No excuses.
I think they make t-shirts that already say it.
No excuses at all. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
We
you.
look forward to seeing you again. I'm going to see you tonight at the event.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will be right back with our next guest.